We're going to explain how to turn on the pivot table field list in Microsoft Excel. This handy list lets you easily add, remove, and rearrange the fields in your pivot table. It's a crucial tool for anyone working with pivot tables. First, make sure you have a pivot table already created. If not, create one using data from your spreadsheet. Locating the pivot table field list. The pivot table field list's location depends on your Excel version and the current layout. However, most of the time it's visible by default whenever you select a pivot table, usually located on the right side of your Excel window. If not, then follow these steps. 2. Activating the pivot table field list if it's hidden. If you can't see it, you'll need to enable it. There are two primary ways to do this. The first is through the Analyze tab in Excel versions with ribbons. On this tab, look for a button that says Pivot Table Analyze or something similar. In many versions of Excel, you will find a Fields button that shows or hides the field list. Clicking this button should toggle the pivot table field list on or off. The second method is a shortcut. Right-click anywhere within your pivot table. Context menu will appear. Scan through the options. You should see an entry like Show Field List or Pivot Table Field List. Select this option. 3. Understanding the pivot table field list. Once the field list is visible, you'll see a list of all the fields from your data source. Each field can be dragged and dropped into 4 different areas of the pivot table: rows, columns, values, and filters. 4. Using the pivot table field list. To add a field to your pivot table, simply drag the field name from the list into the desired area: rows, columns, values, or filters. To remove a field, drag it out of the pivot table area back to the field list. To change the order of fields, simply drag and drop them within their respective areas: rows, columns, etc. 5. Working with the pivot table field list. Using the field list makes it easy to experiment. You can quickly try different combinations of rows, columns, and values to see how your data is summarized. Don't be afraid to move things around and explore. If the pivot table field list is not appearing despite trying both methods, make sure you have actually selected the pivot table itself. Field list is context sensitive and only appears when a pivot table is actively selected. Also, check your Excel's view settings. It might be accidentally hidden or minimized. And remember, practice makes perfect. The more you use pivot tables and their field lists, the more comfortable you'll become with data analysis.